I'm delighted to connect with you all to deliver this talk on the artificial intelligence and healthcare, and would like to thank the organizers at the outset for giving me this opportunity. My talk will be covered under the following heads. So why do we need AI in healthcare? It's nearly impossible to remember a time when technology did not play a major role in our lives. However, can we rely on computers to detect a cancerous mole or even predict cancer? Today, I would like to describe the process, the progress, and the challenges of harnessing data into deep learning algorithms and how this trend of AI is reshaping the future of medicine. AI is already there in our daily lives as we use GPS, facial recognition at passport control points, voice recognition on virtual assistants such as Alexa and Siri, driverless cars or companion robots are a reality today. So, can AI address the unmet clinical demands? For example, in the US, in 2026, there's a 20% estimated unmet demand for clinicians. Can AI bridge this? Time will tell. The unmet health needs are much more acute in the underdeveloped and developing nations. WHO prescribes 1 doctor and 3 beds per 1,000 population, but actual status is actually much lower than this, and that makes it difficult for patients to see a doctor on time and to get admitted to a hospital on time. In India, we have a 3-tiered health system looked after by the government of India, and along with this, we have private hospitals, armed forces, railways, and public sector undertakings also contributing in the healthcare landscape. What's important is our doctor population ratio is now 1.34 per 1,000 population against the WHO's requirement of 1 per 1,000, which has been a big achievement by the government of India, wherein they have made a drive to train more doctors to achieve this landmark. So can AI provide effective solutions? The answer is yes. How to succeed? We have to embrace the AI or the artificial intelligence model. To do so, we must address the challenges which can become obstacles. Foremost is to involve the end user. Who is the end user? Is the doctors, the nurses, the paramedics. And they should be involved from the beginning in creation of an AI model rather than the computer scientists and the engineers making a model and passing it on the users, when very often it's not adopted and it's a waste of money and time. Always keep in mind that it's AI for IA, artificial intelligence for information access for all and not for some. And it's paramount that the AI bridges the inequalities rather than widens this gap between the poor and the rich developed nations. So how does AI work? It's got the rule-based approach, which is the oldest. Then came the machine learning, and the latest is deep learning. So what is deep learning? It's a more advanced field of machine learning that uses the concept of neural networks to solve more complex problems. Scientists have tried to replicate the human brain in the form of artificial neuronal networks. The input data is transformed by applying weightages and biases to get precise outputs. So the objectives are primarily for increased predictions with accuracy. And this, there's no better example than the COVID model. Will there be a third wave in India? We don't know, but we hope not. Well, if it does come, are we more prepared? Answer is yes, thanks to AI. We have all the data of the first and second waves, which has told us which are the populations at risk, how many beds of hospital will be required, what will be the oxygen and ventilator requirements, which will be the age group which have a predisposition to get affected, and so forth. So obviously we hope to do much better. The decision making is the second objective, And decision making can be precise, especially when we feed in symptoms and signs into the deep learning models. It comes out with shortlisting the possibilities out of which the doctors can choose and proceed to further investigate and treat. And it can also solve more complex problems. And these complex problems can be multi-organ or sometimes like genomic, proteomic, and more complex issues where there's major data and high dimensional data which needs solving. And that, when it is given to the deep learning systems, comes out with solutions thereafter which the doctors can proceed. The high-level computations is the future of AI. And this involves, for example, virtual models for clinical trials, virtual models for genomics, and for even genetic disorders. The Human Genome Project took 13 years to make. And since 2003, it's come a long way. Today, a newborn's genome can be mapped out within a day, which is a huge achievement. So what are the applications in healthcare today? The mobile apps. The Indian Myeloma Academic Group called Image has launched a mobile application named Care for Myeloma. This app was launched in the 3rd Indian Myeloma Congress in 2020. And this myeloma app helps us to track our patients wherever in India they are, and also gives the patients access to data, to what research is taking place, what are the new developments on the drug front, also when they need help, what to do, where to go. And we as caretakers can be in regular touch with them. Such apps have also been made for hemophilia tracking and hemoglobinopathies like sickle cell disease. Why is AI impactful in healthcare? The one biggest reason is the present availability of big medical data. These deep learning systems guzzle and actually big medical data leads to solving complex medical problems which involves high dimensional data. And this has a major role in the impact of AI in healthcare. No research is sustainable without a business model, and healthcare is no exception. You can see that the healthcare market size has progressively increased from 600 million in 2014 to 6.6 billion in 2021, 11 times increment. And what is projected for 2026 is 22 times larger, a size of 150 billion. So big players have joined the field. You have from Google to Amazon to IBM, Facebook, Microsoft, and others, and of course Apple, who all already involved with AI, and many of them have diversified to involve healthcare. Many more smaller players have joined the queue, and this list is ever expanding. With this, research has also increased, and with research, publications are on the increase. With just a couple of publications in 2002 and 3, it's now linearly increased to a much larger number. So I come now to the applications of AI in healthcare, which are manifold. And if you see, the top half is patient-related and the bottom half is support-based. The robotic surgery, the physician-assisted programs, virtual nursing assistants, assisted diagnostics, medical image analysis, drug discoveries, along with monitoring, clinical decision-making, treatment options, and logistical and administrative support to deliver healthcare industry. But of course, clinical trials, training, and medical education is a very important part of this whole healthcare delivery system. Who benefits most from it? The patients, of course, along with the healthcare provider, the AI developer, insurance agencies, and pharmaceuticals. Coming to the real world applications itself, a normal chest X-ray, which is cheap and available globally, is being used for diagnosis of tuberculosis, which is rampant in the developing and underdeveloped world. And The chest radiographs can diagnose tuberculosis with 99% accuracy, much more than meets the human eye. The MRI scan, researchers at MIT have used neural networks that simplify the MRI scan process, and you can arrive at a diagnosis much faster than what radiologists do. The activity vital tracker 4th generation Apple Watch goes beyond your heart rate and the number of steps you've taken. And you have the smartwatch and the activity trackers, which takes the data like heart rate, sleep cycle, breathing rate, activity level, blood pressure, and predicts the risk of a heart attack. So it makes a model. Likewise, in cancer screening, you have the IT bra. If it's worn monthly by the ladies, they can have a scan of their breasts, which will pick up suspicious lesions, which can be followed up by the doctors thereafter. It's a very useful tool. Then you have the pressure sensing socks, which are paired with the smartphones. It's been made by the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, wherein diabetic patients with diabetic foots who don't have sensations on their foot and have poor vascular supply develop multiple ulcers which get infected, and thereafter the foot has to be amputated. You can eminently prevent this by using these socks. How? It will pick up all the areas which have incorrect pressures because of ill-fitting shoes, incorrect posture, overexertion, and it can actually be conveyed to your smartphone app, and thereafter corrective measures can be taken and you can actually prevent amputation. AI and medical assistance by virtual nurses is a field which is really growing, and by 2027 they think it's going to have a term value of nearly 20 billion. And this does not replace our real nurses. It helps and assists them and actually helps in enhancing what they can deliver. For example, self-care, clinical advice, scheduling appointments, nurse line, where to go, ER directions can all easily be taken up by a virtual nurse. And also a virtual nurse is not prone to infections, a very important thing in a pandemic like the COVID-19. So they don't pick up infections and they can't convey to the community if you do the necessary cleaning up of them when they treat these patients. Also, they don't get fatigue and tiredness and don't have emotional issues and can work 24/7. But they also, have to be monitored by the real nurses who actually will, be assisted by these virtual nurses. It's not that these are going to replace them. Then you come to the surgical devices. The well-known Da Vinci allows surgeons to perform a range of complex procedures with greater flexibility and control than conventional approaches. It provides surgeons with advanced instruments, translates the surgeon's hand movements with good visibility, and also in here, it is not a robot which replaces the surgeon. It assists the surgeon. How do you get the name of Da Vinci? It's because Leonardo da Vinci was not only a famous painter, he also had interest in anatomy. And his study of human anatomy eventually led to the design of the first robot, which is why this Da Vinci was named after him. And Kathy Hutchinson has been unable to move her arms or legs for 15 years. But using the most advanced brain-machine interface ever developed, she can now steer a robotic arm towards a bottle, pick it up, and drink her morning coffee. The scientists developed microelectrodes that connect brain cells to the electronic circuit. The interface includes a sensor implanted in Kathy's brain, which reads her thoughts, and a decoder which turns her thoughts into instructions for the robotic arm.
Eventually, the researchers hope to build an arm that works as smoothly as a real one and can cope with more complicated tasks like brushing teeth. They'd also like to make a wireless version, so the device doesn't need to be plugged directly into the patient's head. But for now, they're celebrating their progress with Kathy.
All of us were standing in awe, more or less, because we're
glimpse into the future. Google AI has developed and validated a deep learning algorithm for detection of diabetic retinopathy in the retinal fundus photographs. And they're doing a collaborative research project with the Arvind hospitals in South India, wherein the images from the retina have been made into a model along with other risk factors like age, sex, smoking, and other risk factors to make predictive models for predicting cardiovascular risk and myocardial infarction or heart attacks. Drug discovery and pharmacovigilance. And here the main role would be in the preclinical component where time, money is spent, animals are sacrificed. You can actually cut this short by the application of AI and actually come to the clinical trials to fast track drugs. Pharmacovigilance is mainly to curb medication errors, which is a significant cause of morbidity and mortality in the world. And this is the science and activity relating to detection, assessment, and understanding to prevent adverse effects and other devices and drugs related to safety issues and because of errors which occur due to their usage. Every year, 100,000 such events are reported in the US, and AI can be useful for giving leads and warning on medication errors to prevent the same. WHO has a global database of nearly 20 million such reports recorded since 1968. The AI can access this to make more models to prevent medication errors. Who can report this? All these people are stakeholders and can report medication errors. Ethics and limitation of AI. Perhaps the most difficult set of questions to answer in AI context are the ethical ones. Where does the responsibility lie? Who will be responsible for the harm caused by AI mistakes? The computer programmer, the tech company, the regulator, or the clinician? We don't know. Does the doctor have transgression rights to overrule the machine? Yet not established. So we need regulator and regulations, which are action in hand. I'm sure will be in place soon to actually answer these questions. So the doctor asks, has AI taken over the health industry? Will the robots ultimately replace humans at the workplace? I don't think so. On the contrary, I think AI will allow doctors to be delivering more personalized medicine, help in decision making, which will be faster and more accurate, which will make their lives of doctors simpler and safer, because they may not get exposed to infectious diseases like COVID upfront. And obviously, they can never be replaced yet, and the comfort of talking to a doctor will always remain and cannot be replaced by AI. So where are we right now in this journey? We are still in the narrow end of AI, where we are dedicated to single tasks. To simulate human brain function and to surpass it is still a way out from where we are now. The other ethical problems we have is hacking and malware. And this can, especially in healthcare, lead to personal and confidential information which can be leaked and can have massive medical legal implications. Acceptance by healthcare workers is slow. And for that, literacy has to be encouraged and sensitization has to be done so that they adopt AI more readily. Acceptance by patients is the other important part. Whether a robo or a computer screen instead of a physician is acceptable to a patient, where there will be no emotional quotient. A robo placating a child who's crying or a nurse and a doctor doing the same, there's a huge difference. Everything's going to be fine, but how fine is the human touch and the warmth which cannot be replaced, which also translates into empathy, which is one of the cornerstones of the healthcare system coming from humans. The cost effectiveness is very important. If it's so costly that it is not accessible by poor countries, then it's of no use. So it should actually be used to bridge the inequalities between the rich and the poor and not widen it. Limitations of machine learning are based on garbage in and garbage out, GIGO. So if you have biased data going in, you will have biased outputs. So you'll have to make sure that the data going in does have minimal biases. And it should not be ending up with more of correlates than where you're looking for a causation. What do I mean by this? Correlates is like saying cholesterol, high cholesterol causes heart attacks, while we are not taking many other factors into causation, just because we found an association or a correlation between the two. But when we see the causation, we cannot establish it. And to establish it, you need many more things: family history, lifestyle modification, age, smoking habits, and many other things. So when you monitor all these things over a period of time, you have a real model where you can find the cause, and it will not be a correlate. And that should be our goal in AI. The future is high performance computing, HPC. And here you have the Living Heart Project, the Texas Advanced Computing Center, where is cancer in our DNA, and the Rady Children's Institute for Genetic Medicine, which says Swift genetic testing. All these are high dimensional data, but you can have answers within a day or two, where you would have struggled for days on weeks before you got an answer. A living heart is used to simulate clinical trials, devices, and pacemakers. So the future is here, and the AI can also be telefaced with telemedicine, automated telesurgery, and other such applications. India has taken up this project with diabetic retinopathy, cancer biobank, and our Prime Minister and government have led this from the front, held virtual global summits, and actually are leading AI in various fronts in a very proactive fashion. Coming to Corona, a patient will typically ask what to do, where to go, whom to contact, how will I get treated, will I die? All real questions. And this is with the staggering results of 227 million people affected and over 4 lakh people dying. And along with this, you can see that nearly 65% of the population shares come from Asia and 18% has come from India. While the mortality, 75% is from Europe and Americas. Is this due to underreporting from the low-income countries? One still doesn't know. This big data has led to one umbrella with a wealth of information called the COVID-19 data lake. Enormous potential, multiple scientific applications can be derived from this, like forecasting and preventing infections, emergency operation, disease containment, treatment, and drug research. And the most important, computational driven vaccinology has done wonders. In less than a year, we have had the vaccine candidates out, and it's being a reality that the globe is getting vaccinated. And who is getting vaccinated, we have to decide. Children with less than 18 years in India are not being vaccinated, but the eligible age groups, the older people, the high-risk groups with comorbidities were first vaccinated. The frontline workers were also the first to be vaccinated. In India, the drive started on 16th of January 2021. The vaccination map of the world. This is a cause of concern. At the top, you can see the rich countries have all 60 to 90%. You come to the bottom, see Africa, it's less than 10%. Tanzania, less than 1%. This will not do. We have to help even a continent like Africa to set up production facilities and catch up. Because any part which is unvaccinated is a risk for the rest of the world. And the candidates which have been approved by WHO are here, 7, out of which India has Covishield. These other vaccine candidates are under development. India has 2 in this list. And as you can see, Covaxin and Covovax, and a total of 13 such candidates. And the first wave we didn't know how to navigate. We didn't have vaccines, we didn't have drugs. The second wave, we started having the vaccine, we had drug discovery, we used drugs, we were more prepared. As the third wave comes, hopefully we'll be even more prepared. And today we have a lot of publications from this big data generated from the first 2 waves. So here, prevention is better than cure, there is no doubt. And our Prime Minister has led from the front, and the British Herald has said that this leader who handled the crisis best steered his country to help other countries with the COVID vaccine manufacturing, projected growth of 11.5% for 2021. And the British Herald goes on to say that Mr. Narendra Modi on the cover is the world's most powerful person. So in summary, many medical AI applications are on the horizon, which I've already described, but we should not have overinflated claims which will lead to disappointments. There are social, economical, ethical, and legal challenges, which I'm sure we'll address with time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for a very patient listening. God bless. Jai Hind.